and welcome to another lecture. In today's class, we'll be discussing on authority. What is authority? Unlike power, authority is the right to give orders and enforce obedience. I'll take that again. Authority may be defined as the power or the right to give orders and enforce obedience. Now, we're very aware that power has to do with force, but authority, you have the right. It is a privilege that has been given to you because it has been defined in a constitution. I hope we understand what I'm trying to say. Now that we're familiar with the definition of authority, we'll move on to the next topic, which is the source of political authority. There are three major sources of political authority, and they are the traditional authority, the legal authority, and the charismatic authority. I'll take that again. We have the traditional authority, the legal authority, and the charismatic authority. Now, let's go detail in what these three authorities mean. Now, the traditional authority is the source of authority that is derived from hereditary family based on the existing custom and tradition. This is usually passed down to families or members of a family. It is usually within a relative. It is just like the Oba of Lagos and the Eze of Igbo land. You know that when they die, their authority or their title is given or is passed on to their children, and this enables them to have the authority their fathers had. Now, I'll say it again. This authority is derived from hereditary families. It's usually in royal houses and basically royal houses, and they exist based on custom and tradition. The second source of political authority is the legal authority. This type of authority is derived from a body of rules and regulations governing a given society, such as the Constitution. Remember when I defined what a constitution is? A constitution is a written document that contains the rules and regulations guiding a state. Now, legal authority is gotten from this constitution because the constitution defines the duty each organ have to carry out. Now, I hope we understand that. I'll take it again. The legal authority is usually derived from the constitution, and we're familiar with what the constitution means. A constitution is a written document that has in detail the rules and regulations governing a state. Now, these rules and regulations guide the organs of government, and it gives in detail the functions and the duties and the rights or the obligations or the works these organs of government have to carry out. Now, the third sources of political authority is the charismatic authority. Now, the charismatic authority, remember what I said about charisma. Charisma has to do with one's way of carrying him or herself. So it has to do with one's innate abilities. So the charismatic authority is a source of authority which is exceptional. Like, it comes with a person's characteristics. Like I said, it is innate. It is the abilities or the personal ability of the individual. Now, I hope we now thoroughly understand what the sources of political authority there is, and we can clearly state the difference between each of the three political authorities, sources of political authorities. Now, we'll move further to discuss the types of authority. Now, there are 5 types of authority. We have the political authority, we have the coercive authority, we have the delegate authority, we have the traditional authority, and we have the legal rational authority. I'll take that again. We have the political authority, we have the coercive authority, we have the delegate authority, we have the traditional authority, and we have the legal rational authority. Now, let's go in detail what each of these authority mean. The first one is the political authority. This is the power given on a group of individuals by a written constitutions to make decisions and enforce obedience. Now, this has to do with people in the political space. Now, these are people you have as a politician who is holding certain seats or certain positions. You are bestowed with some authorities, from some political authorities, to make decisions and enforce obedience. The second one is coercive authority. This is the type of authority involving the use of force. Can we all remember what I said about force? When you hear force in government, what comes to your mind? Exactly, the military. So coercive authority has to do with force, and is usually you can clearly see it you can clearly see it in the military setting, because they make use of force and compulsion. Yeah. The third type of authority is the delegate authority. Now, this type of authority is conferred on subordinates to exercise certain power. Now, we know in modern democracy, power is delegated. What I mean by delegated is power is shared across various systems. It's not just one person that does all the work. A lot of people are put in place. They're delegated, means they're shared. So a lot of people are put in place to give or to exercise certain power. Now, that's what we call delegate authority. These are given, or these are powers that are shared to people to carry out some exercise. I hope that is very clear. Now, the fourth type of authority is the traditional authority. This type of authority is legitimized and defined by customs and tradition. Like I've said, in traditional way, when a king is elected or is given the throne, he has some legitimate rights to make some certain decisions. Because of that title he holds, he has the right to exercise certain powers. Now we move on to the last, is the legal rational authority. The legal rational authority is the power that is legitimized as well, and it is defined by law and held by those who are equally qualified. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. The Constitution defines the legal rational authority, because in the Constitution there is a document that states their functions or that states their work. Now that we're familiar with the types of authority, we're going to look into the difference between power and authority. Yes, I know that they both sound similar, but they are in fact different and two distinct things. While one is the use of force, the other is legitimized. I'll go detailing so that you understand better. One of the difference between power and authority is that the exercise of power requires some elements of force and sanctions, while authority is exercised without the application of force. Do you understand what I just said, or should I take it again? All right, I'll take it again. One of the difference between power and authority is that the exercise of power requires some elements of force and sanctions, while authority is exercised without the application of force. Power, on the other hand, is usually enforced and compelled, or is done under compulsion. Authority is exercised without the application of force because they are recognized as individuals that have the capacity to enforce or to give directives. Now, the second difference between power and authority is that punishment that goes with power is severe. Because of the nature of power, or because of what power entails, usually the punishment that comes with it is usually death penalty, because they're usually decrees and they're usually done to instill fear. So they usually come with punishments or sanctions that are very, very big. So death is a sanction or is a punishment that goes in power, while the possessor of authority can only discipline and cannot order the death of a citizen. Do you understand that? Now, anyone with authority cannot give a death penalty, but can only discipline. So you cannot give capital punishment. If you're with authority, you give subtle discipline. I hope you understand. Now, the third difference between power and authority is that the main attribute of authority is legitimacy. And what does legitimacy mean? Legitimacy means acceptance, approval. Yes, when you're right for it. Now, the main attribute of authority is legitimacy. Power may not be legitimate, e.g., the military power. Now, we know that during coup d'etat, remember when Nigeria was in coup d'etat, power was a forceful takeover. So there was no choice for the citizens but to abide by the military regime. So, lastly, the difference between power and authority is that power cannot be delegated while authority can. Remember what I said about delegation. Delegation has to do with sharing of power or sharing the work. So yeah, sharing. Remember what I said about legitimate delegation. It has to do with sharing of power. So power cannot be delegated. You cannot delegate power, while authority can. You can share your authority by placing people in roles. Now that we're familiar with the difference between power and authority, we've come to the end of this class. In our next class, we will be discussing on legitimacy. Don't forget to follow, like, and share on all our social media platforms. Don't forget to click the subscribe button below, and we hope to see you in our next class. Have a great day.